First Presbyterian Church in Jackson, Tennessee, and this is our daily devotional series. So I'm going to start today with something I read this morning from my own personal devotional time. I was reading a book called The Art of Pastoring by William C. Martin. This is a collection of sort of contemplative reflections, and this was given to me years ago by a mentor and good friend. And I still, all these years later, am finding wisdom in it. But what I read this morning that really caught my attention is this sentence. The writer says, "It is likely that you have become convinced that your worth lies in the fullness of your mind, your schedule, and your congregation's programs." I was so struck by that sentence. I mean, I think that our culture tends to think that, the busier we are, that the more we have on our calendars, the bigger our to-do list are, the more worth we have, the more important we must be. But I usually think of that in terms of like my calendar or my to-do list. And I haven't thought of it so much in terms of, having a full mind. That we try to sometimes get our worth, our value from having a full mind and what that looks like. Um, you know, a calendar that we're trying to get our sense of worth from is just filled with busyness, right? It's filled with appointments and meetings, half of which we probably don't really need to attend, but we do it anyway because it'll make us feel important and needed. I think a full mind, a busy mind is the same way. It's just constantly churning out information and is not listening, it's not looking toward anything else to get information, but instead, like a full mind, a busy mind, is relying on your own thoughts and thinking that you have all the answers, and not listening for other voices. And, of course, that's not where our value comes from. Our value comes from God's love for us and for, our intrinsic value to God. But we tend to put our sense of worth in, a busy mind and a busy calendar. And when we do that, we forget to listen for God's voice. We start to think that we have all the answers, that we have, all the guidance we need, and that we can just go it alone, strike out on our own, and we forget to listen for God's voice. So now I'm going to read from Psalm 85. This is verse 8. So listen now for the word of God. Let me hear what God the Lord will speak, for he will speak peace to his people, to his faithful, to those who turn to him in their hearts. So I think it's a good question to ask ourselves. What are we filling our days with? What voices are we listening to? Are we filling our days up with busyness and to-do list, and are we filling our days up only with our own sort of inner voice, with our, are we letting our mind just be too full and too busy to listen for God? And a good way to measure what we're doing is to check in with ourselves. If we're feeling busy, if we're feeling overwhelmed, if we're feeling stressed out, all those kind of things, if we're feeling busy, we're probably not listening for God's voice. Because if we're listening to what God is saying, if we hear what God will speak, then God speaks peace to us. So if we're hearing peace, then we know we're listening for God. And a word of peace is something that we can all use right now. So thanks be to God.